Hey guys, this is Liz Barnett Simmons. I am a fitness and food coach based in northern New Jersey in the New York City area, but frankly, I work with clients all over the place, and this is WTF Wednesday. WTF Wednesday is my ongoing series where I kind of break down and dive into a current health, wellness, fitness, nutrition sort of trend. It might be a larger topic like organic food, or it might be something super specific. If you're just joining, I'm just kind of giving you a little background about what we're going to be talking about today and kind of why I'm here. You can feel free to ask questions. Keep in mind, if you can't hang tight for the whole live, which will be about 10 minutes, I will repost it, so it'll be available for the next 24 hours. And more importantly, I do a blog recap, which includes this video, but any sort of references or links I might allude to. And specifically for today's WTF Wednesday, a lot of the content's going to be in the blog post because frankly there's just way too much to go over in such a short period of time. What I'm talking about today is the concept of health washing, or kind of using marketing to make a product, a person, a concept, a trend seem kind of healthier. And I think it's really important to understand that when a company or an individual sort of health washes, what they're doing is they're preying on both either your fears, right, or maybe your aspirations. So making a product seem like you need it, or it's like the only thing that's going to help you. That's kind of the idea of health washing. Keep in mind, I keep some notes behind me on my computer, so if I'm looking off into a distance, it's just because I want to reference those. So the reason I decided to talk about health washing is the publication Well and Good, which is New York City based, did an article about it, and I'll link to that article in the blog post. Just a couple of things from the article that I thought were interesting. I believe it was a registered dietitian that commented that unfortunately many brands are promoting better health in their products while often not actually making us healthier in any meaningful way. She points out that it's common for brands to proclaim their products are made with natural sweeteners like cane sugar rather than high fructose corn syrup. This just recently happened with the Super Bowl. Budweiser kind of has this whole marketing plan in terms of no high fructose corn syrup or no corn syrup in their product, when in fact using a sugar in the fermentation of beer you have to, and the finished product doesn't have any of that in it, right? So it's kind of like misleading. Going back to what the registered dietitian was saying, but at the end of the day, both high fructose corn syrup and sugar affect the body in pretty much the same way, and one is not inherently healthier than the other. So it's marketing fluff. Marion Nessel, who is a PhD and Masters of Public Health, she's pretty famous in the food world. She's a professor at NYU, and she talks a lot about nutrition, food studies, and public health. She says eating a not so healthy food with a single better for you nutrient isn't going to significantly impact your health overall. So in other words, cookies, right? I'm seeing a lot of like cookies and cereal that are enhanced with like probiotics. I have lots of questions. I did some research, and I have questions in terms of like how, for example, the probiotics not only survive the processing of this packaged food, but then the processing of your digestion. Apparently there are some ways to make that work. However, it's still a cookie, right? So is eating cookies the best way to get probiotics? Probably not. This all comes down to a concept called reductive nutrition. And that is why I call myself a fitness and a food coach and not, say, a nutritionist or a nutrition expert, because I think in this day and age, it's just so easy to make nutrition about like a single nutrient or macronutrient, right? Fat, carbs, protein, sugar, vitamin B, whatever, right? When in fact, food is really more than just the sum of its parts, right? It's how everything is interacting together. I'm talking about health washing today from this perspective of food because I think there's a lot to be gleaned from that, but really anything in your lifestyle. For example, beauty products, household cleaning products, and it's very common to use marketing terms like natural or non-toxic. Now, personally, I do actually purchase these kinds of products because I find that I'm very sensitive to harsher chemicals. But I'm aware that the word non-toxic doesn't mean anything really, because anything can be toxic in the wrong amount. Water can be toxic, right? You can drown from too much water, but water is good for you. And the word natural across all different industries is very fuzzy in the regulation. So I think it's just important to kind of realize that, do your own research, and then make an educated decision based on that. And also just, be an experiment of one. Like I said, certain cleaning products tend to irritate me, so I avoid them and I use more natural options. But, for example, people use essential oils for everything from cleaning products to beauty products to even ingesting them. But essential oils can be toxic. If you put some straight up essential oil on your skin, it will burn. You will probably have a negative reaction. So even foods, things like essential oils that might be healthy for you in certain preparations or certain dosages, or in certain sort of formulations, those can be toxic as well, even if they are natural. So I think that's just important to understand that distinction. For example, in terms of kind of just going back to reductive nutrition, I believe it was Mary Nessel that said, I have seen countless numbers of times on the front of the cereal box, high in calcium supports bone health. Marketers have to be very careful about how they're making claims. So they might say supports bone health, but they can't say, for example, prevents osteoporosis, right? That's not a claim that they can make. So they're very tricky about how they market these items. The same cereal she's talking about, even though it might be high in calcium, which is, by the way, like added calcium, it's not necessarily in a formulation that your body's going to best absorb, it could also have 12 grams of sugar per serving. And that doesn't do away with any of those, the positive aspects of it. Whatever's added to it and whatever's being marketed might not balance out the potential negative side effects, right? Or the negative parts of it. Focusing on this reductive nutrition, she says, one specific nutrient gives the food product an aura of health, when in reality it's candied cereal to look healthier. And I call that like a health halo, right? When it's one aspect of a product, whether it be food or beauty products or or cleaning products or clothing or whatever, and it's something that's, being sold, even a service, when you kind of make it have this like health halo, it can be really easy to be sort of wooed by that, right? And not really pay attention to the facts. There's a study which I will link to in my blog post follow-up, but it was about snack foods and nutrient claims. And basically, when the snack food carried a nutrient claims for vitamin fortification of any kind, participants were, one, less likely to look for the other nutrition information on the nutrition facts label. So they didn't even bother to look at, the other aspects of the product. Two, they were more likely to actually buy the product, right, which is what marketers want you to do. And three, generally, they're more likely to perceive the product as healthier. So those are all important things to keep in mind, that, whether it's specific advertising that's aimed at you, or even just like an influencer that you follow on social media that talks about the benefits of a non-toxic such and such a thing, right? You, for whatever reason, whether it's for marketing or because you have your trust in this person or product, you might just go ahead and buy it without really doing further research. So I do have some tips. First of all, in terms of food, you want to try to buy food in as close to its, quote, natural state as possible. And I just said earlier that natural is not a thing. But by that, I mean, like, you should be able to tell what that food is, right? I will never forget a couple years ago, there was a season of Biggest Loser, which I don't watch, but I saw a commercial for, and they were including kids on it. And there was a kid, and he was, encouraged to eat broccoli, and he was afraid of the broccoli because he thought it was made in a factory, because he had never seen like a whole head of broccoli, right? He was so used to eating packaged goods that he didn't actually recognize something that was natural. So, as far as food goes, I think it's important to, as much as you can, cook and purchase and cook your own food, right? Know where your food comes from, whether that means shopping at a farmer's market or, even getting to know some local purveyors, right? I think we are so disconnected from our food, and we are so focused on this sort of reductive nutrition. How many calories does it have? How many grams of this? How high in that is it? That we're not even just thinking about it as food. If the food does come with a label, which you might notice lots of these natural foods do not, look for the ingredients first. Look at the ingredients before you look at the things like calories and sugar and so on. I'm sure you've heard this before, but how many ingredients does it have? If there's a lot of unpronounceable sort of man-made ingredients, that might be something you want to avoid. Keep in mind, though, that not all weird ingredients are bad. You sometimes do need things to preserve foods and make them shelf stable, like ascorbic acid is just vitamin C. So do your research. You need to make sure whatever you're buying is safe, obviously. Ask yourself, if you're buying something that's packaged, and this was actually a recommendation from a famous client I had. She went on this diet, and her diet was can I make this thing myself? So before she goes and buys some cookies, ask myself, like, if I really wanted to, could I make these cookies myself? And I think that's a good practice. You might not make the cookies yourself, but basically, is it possible for you to make this thing at home? And if the answer is yes, that might be a little bit of an indication that it's a more sort of whole foods, like natural, less processed item. And then if you really do care, you have to take time to do research. Google things. Google has a lot of different information, but you just kind of have to dive in, ask some experts. So for example, there's a pastured egg company that is super popular, great marketing, right? There's like happy hens on the package, and it does say that they're pastured eggs, but I've heard some information that maybe like the eggs are not, the chickens are not being raised the way that the company is purporting that they are all the time, or they're sort of fudging the marketing a little bit, right? And that's unfortunate, right? But you have to be an informed consumer. If you can, maybe instead of buying things even from Whole Foods, right? Just because it's from Whole Foods doesn't mean it's good for you. Maybe you can support instead local farms or small businesses. That's another way to kind of not only support, small businesses, but have a better idea of where your food is coming from. And then I always think you should be aware of these sort of what I call enhanced products that are like very flash in the pan trendy. So things like I mentioned before, like cookies or cereal with probiotics, or CBD and everything. And like, by the way, I love CBD and I use CBD, but like, I don't need CBD with coffee, or I don't need a coffee bean enhanced with CBD. I'm not even sure how that's going to work as a delivery mechanism. And I think it's important to know, is there a therapeutic amount of whatever it is that it's being enhanced by, right? Even something as simple as I see lots of food bloggers make recipes and they say, with collagen, like collagen is great for you, but like a whole recipe that has like 12 servings has 1 tablespoon of collagen in it. And like, that's not going to do anything for you. So I think it's just important to be like realistic. And if there is something like, say, probiotics, is there like a more natural alternative like yogurt? Can you just eat yogurt? That's sort of my general sense of the topic. I am going to include a blog post. I want you to let me know if you'd like a separate WTF Wednesday breaking down some of these specific terms more thoroughly, such as natural, natural flavor. If you see something that says made with, right? Like made with organic ingredients, what does that mean? Versus organic versus a certain percentage of organic, what does that mean, right? When it comes to meat, things like I mentioned organic or pasture raised or grass fed, no hormones, right? You buy organic poultry and pork and it says no hormones, which sounds great, right? You know that these added hormones are bad for you. But the fact of the matter is chicken and pork cannot have hormones in it anyway. So the fact that they're saying no hormones is kind of redundant because they're not allowed to have extra hormones added. So they're just using that as sort of like an extra marketing ploy. As far as seafood goes, things like farmed versus wild caught versus sustainable, some of this is just frankly misinformation. There is certain seafood that it's actually better quality if it's farmed under sustainable practices versus wild caught, because based on the ecosystem. Not all wild caught fish is the best fish, for example. Words like antibiotic free or vegetarian, eggs that are vegetarian fed is another sort of marketing ploy. Guess what? Chickens are not vegetarians. They actually eat, they peck at the ground and they eat things like grubs and worms, and they don't eat, like vegetarian soy pellets, which some of them are fed. So, just also knowing when you're talking about meat, what that actual animal is supposed to, eat, and how it's supposed to live. So those are just some specifics that I'll go into in the blog post recap. But if you would like a more in-depth WTF Wednesday, or me to discuss that a little bit more, you can always shoot me a message, shoot me a DM, or you can email me at liz@lizbarnett.com. Again, this will be up for the next 24 hours. I'll also just post in my Instagram story my email and my website if you want to take a look, and so you know where the blog is. And as always, let me know if you have any questions, and have a great Wednesday.